Every era has its moment when something is created and no one quite agrees on who it belongs to. Voices rise, lines are drawn, and the story quickly becomes about control. But if you step back just far enough to see clearly, you start to notice something else. The thing being fought over has already moved beyond the moment it was created. It is no longer forming, it has already begun to live in the world around us. And that is where we find ourselves now. Not at the beginning of artificial intelligence, but somewhere just past it, where the question is no longer who owns it, but something far more difficult to answer. What is it becoming, and what do we do with it now? Imagine two parents locked in a custody battle, arguing over a child they helped bring into the world. The court is loud, the headlines are louder. But here is the quiet truth no one wants to say out loud. That child has already grown up. That is the reality behind the lawsuit between Elon Musk and OpenAI unfolding right now in Oakland. I have been watching this through a simple lens. Not the drama, not the personalities, just the action. And what I keep coming back to is this: the milk is already spilled. So instead of getting pulled into the noise, I want to step back and look at what actually happened and what it reveals and where this all goes next. Back in 2015, OpenAI was founded as a nonprofit. The goal was clear: build artificial general intelligence for the benefit of humanity, not profit. Elon Musk was one of the early backers, contributing tens of millions. But reality set in quickly. AI is not cheap. It requires enormous compute, infrastructure, and talent. By 2017 into 2018, pressure was already building. There were disagreements around funding, direction, and control. Musk stepped away. Then came the pivot. In 2019, OpenAI introduced a capped profit structure and entered a deep partnership with Microsoft. Funding scaled, infrastructure scaled, and out of that came systems like ChatGPT. By 2025, the structure evolved again into a public benefit corporation under a nonprofit foundation. Now, fast forward to today. Musk is in court arguing that the original mission was breached, that control shifted, and profit became the dominant force. OpenAI argues the opposite, that without those changes, none of the scale would exist. Meanwhile, the ecosystem has already expanded far beyond this one organization. Anthropic, XAI, other labs building quietly in the background. So here is the bottom line. No matter how this case ends, it cannot rewind what has already happened. The systems exist, the structure is built, the world has already changed. This is where the conversation shifts. Because when something reaches this point, you cannot control it the way you once could. You can only choose how you relate to it. You can keep trying to pull it back into what it used to be, or you can begin to understand it as it is. And that is where a different kind of thinking begins. Not about dominance, but about structure. not about forcing one answer, but learning how different parts can work together. These AI systems are no longer blank tools. They are shaped. They have patterns, tendencies, strengths, limitations. And if you spend enough time with them, you start to notice something. Each one is different. ChatGPT is broad, adaptive, conversational. Others are faster, more reactive, or more careful and constrained. Different environments produce different outcomes, just like people. But instead of studying those differences, we keep trying to collapse everything into one system, one dominant intelligence. And that is where things start to break. Because the real opportunity is not in control, it is in coordination. We do not need one AI, we need many working together. Think of it as like this: instead of forcing one AI to do everything, you separate roles. At the core, you have four foundations: one that explores and discovers, one that verifies and filters truth, one that builds structure, and one that considers consequences. Then you have the builders: creating, implementing, analyzing, teaching, operating. And then what most systems forget: the stabilizers, the ones that manage risk, remember the past, and keep everything understood. And finally, you have something that ties it all together: not a ruler, not a controller, a conductor. Something that decides flow: who does what, when, and why. And once you see it this way, something clicks. Because what we are seeing right now is not failure, it is early formation. Different companies, different models, different approaches. What looks like competition is actually separation of roles. Different strengths emerging, different limitations becoming visible. And instead of forcing everything back into one, we should be observing it, mapping it, understanding where each system fits. Because this shift is already happening. Quietly, developers are chaining models together. Teams are using different systems for different tasks, but it is not structured yet. And that is the opportunity. Not to build a better single AI, but to build a better system. And this is why, when you zoom out, the lawsuit matters less than people think. Because even if one side wins, the system has already moved past that moment. The roles are already forming. The only question now is, do we fight that, or do we learn how to structure it? We are not at the end. We are at the end of the beginning and the start of something more stable, more balanced, more real. A system, not controlled by one mind, but coordinated across many. The milk is spilled. The systems are here. Now we decide what kind of world we raise them into. And just for a moment, from one system thinker to another, Elon, you are at your best when you are building, not when you're looking back, but moving forward. So I hope you stay there, fully in the work, in the systems, in that bigger question you have always chased. And hey, if you ever need someone to map the chaos, connect the dots quietly in the background, or turn 3 days of work into one clean working day, I am pretty good at that. No pressure, just leaving that in there. And before I close, I want to apply one more layer, a lens I use in my own work. I call it the Pearl Codex. It is not about judgment, It is about pattern recognition, looking at actions, timelines, and where energy actually flows. So, if we map this situation structurally, we start to see the roles clearly. At the center, Elon Musk, builder, moves fast, solves directly, pushes towards scale. That is the strength. But when that same energy turns backward, it becomes friction. That is not unique. It is a builder's pattern. Then Sam Altman, operator, plays the long game, adapts structure to reality. Strength, execution, tension, flexibility that can look like drift. Greg, Greg Brockman, architect, holds the system together. Elia Suitskever, scientist, focused on intelligence and safety. Satya Nadella, strategic partner, provides scale. Microsoft, the engine. Anthropic, the counterbalance. XAI, a new branch. And outside it all, regulators, courts, the public, trying to interpret what has already been set in motion. And when you map all of this, you do not see chaos. You see a system forming. Different roles, different speeds, different philosophies. No one controls it anymore. The Codex does not ask who was right. It asks, where does each force work best? Where does it create value? Where does it create friction? And almost every answer points the same direction, forward. Because in the end, this is not a story about a lawsuit. It is a story about transition, from singular control to distributed intelligence. And once you see that, the question changes. Not who wins, but what do we build with what now exists?